I'm really excited for the conversation today. Today I have Gena joining me. Gena's been on the team since I came onto the team from the very beginning. She was one of the originals in the conversations when the partners were trying to spin this up. So I'm very excited for this conversation and for Gena to just tell a little bit more about the Bridgeforth story, but also more importantly, tell more about Gena's story and where she's at. And right now we're really open to highlight her as well as she makes a little bit of a transition that we're super excited to share with you all. But I'll let her talk about that a little bit more, and a little bit more about how she kind of came on to Bridgeforth and what her past experience with kind of the partnership has been a little bit. Gena, how are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Levi. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So yeah, I just wanted to hear a little bit more about your start with Bridgeforth, and getting started with the partners. I know the audience doesn't know, but you worked with Jay for several years before this. So just give us a little bit of history about Gena and your story here in the Bridgeforth.
Yeah, so I've definitely we'll start kind of with the Jay thing in Bridgeforth. Been with Jay for probably the last 4 years as his executive assistant, working virtually. I live in Oklahoma, and as you know, he's in Kansas, and so we work virtually pretty well together. We try and meet up every now and then. And so over the last 4 years, watching this vision of Bridgeforth come together has been amazing. And here we are. It's really cool. And as his executive assistant, there's a lot of things I got to watch on the backside and conversations and just the planning and stuff like that. And now to transition into this role as, an advisor with Bridgeforth, more specifically an executive team coach. That allows me to take not just my last 4 years with Jay and Bridgeforth and Milk Money, but also my last 30 plus years in different industries. And so early on, I worked in the medical field for about 17, almost 20 years in mostly dermatology, clinical research, surgical, cancer, stuff like that. And so I'm just working with a lot of physicians and a lot of other teams in offices and in surgical settings, along with FDA settings. And then fast forward, kind of wanted to go out on my own and had my own research company for a little while. And then I went into building my own team with a particular nutrition product, built a team of like over 400 people, had a blast doing that, loved working for myself and working from home. And then wanted to do a little more. And that was how I met Jay, and met Jay and a couple of other clients that I've worked with in that industry. And through all of that, fast forward, here we are today, you and I talking. So yeah.
For sure. And I want to get into a little bit more about kind of your executive role, assistant role there with Jay, just because that's how I met you originally, and was through that. And there for the first couple months, it felt like, we were both the people, just in the other seat, or the quiet one,
Right.
just working behind the scenes. And you way more than I was too, just basically running everything for Jay behind the scenes. Just talk a little bit more, I guess, about that and how that kind of came to.
You mean in the sense of like helping him, or what we got to experience?
More about, I guess, what you kind of got to experience. I know that like Jay gets to take a lot of the glory for it, but you're the one back there pulling the strings behind the scenes and really taking a workload off of him, so he's able to
Making
go
him
out
look
there.
good is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. So that he's able to go out there and execute, and that's what a great facilitator does. And I think that's like being able to watch you do that into these meetings. I think it's something that completely gets kind of put by the side or gets discredited sometimes, but being able to run a efficient meeting on the same day and push a team forward, I think a lot of teams could really, really use that. And so I just am curious kind of how that came to be, and how you develop those skills more.
What's really funny is I've sat in so many meetings. I mean, I've been a school board member for 10 years, and, then sitting in other boards before I met Jay, and just sitting in so many different executive meetings as the fly on the wall. You're able to see and learn what works, and more importantly, what doesn't work. But as the fly on the wall, you can't always be the voice to raise your hand and say, hey, you probably could have a much better and more productive meeting if you would change this up. And working with Jay and a couple of my other clients, this sounds so crazy, but to hear the word meeting facilitator was new to me. Like, I didn't even realize there's actually a person that goes in, like, all the meetings I've ever sat in, they were just ran by like whoever was in charge of that said company or that said board. Well, what happens is when you implement this facilitator, things go so much better. The attendees of the meeting get to be 100% intentional and in the meeting, and the facilitator worries about the agenda and if we're on time, asking the right questions. A lot of times you can let the conversation go one way for a little while, but then the facilitator is the one that says, okay, we need to bring that back in. And so watching Jay do that has just taught me a lot. And then learning that I actually have pretty good at that. Like because
To say the
I can
least.
pay
Yeah.
attention. Thank you. To
Yeah.
pay attention to, hey, Sally said this over here. The conversation kept going this way, but we need to get back to what Sally said because it's really a good point and no one might have heard it. And so just being in that position is it's really a unique, fun place to be. And just to get to allow everyone to be 100% engaged in the meeting, and just put the rest of that responsibility on me is it's a pretty neat thing. And that's like where I have really enjoyed, like, talk about in your genius zone. That's where I get
Yeah.
excited.
Your flow
Yeah,
state.
I
Yeah.
do. I do. And helping people and asking hard questions. I think part of a facilitator is, um, I have a unique ability to discern emotions and feelings and unspoken things in the room. And that sounds so crazy, but I will tell you, there's been more times than not that someone has said to me, thank you so much for asking what I was thinking. And as a third party, unbiased person in the room, I don't mind asking the hard question. I'm not going to give you the answer, but I can certainly pose the question that I feel like someone in the room might be wanting to ask, but they don't feel like they have the position or the authority to ask that question, and then to make someone else in the room answer that question.
Yeah, a couple of the key points I want to just kind of point out there is one, like you talked about, the third party, having an unbiased third party inside of your business or organization that is there to facilitate and run and push you forward and hold everybody accountable too, from top to the
Right.
bottom. Like, you're not involved.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're paying me to come in here and help you run,
Yeah.
and I'm going to make sure that we run. And I thought that seeing you do that was incredible, especially for some of the bigger clients, and also the people that are in the room. Like, you're creating a room for C-level executives to be able to operate and run, and that's a hard room to control. There's a lot of egos, and
Correct.
there's a lot of egos in those rooms. There's a lot of opinions in those rooms, and to be able to keep things on track and pushing forward is just it's incredible to watch, but also, like, it just gets stuff done, and we hear it
Yeah.
over and over again. So I'm always appreciative to see that and watch that
Thanks.
with you. And the other part of that is just the communication part, being able to keep constant communication, whether it's the lowest guy in the totem pole all the way up to the C-suite executives. You're making sure that every voice is being heard, and you're trying to think of
Mm-hmm.
it through everybody's different viewpoints. And I think that that's another thing that's just been great to watch and to see develop over teams, is you developing their communication.
Well, I think
How those skills develop for you?
right. Well, and that's what's unique about me is I've sat in those seats, and I've either sat in those seats or I have been a part of the meeting that where people have sat in those seats. And so I may have been the low man on the totem pole, wanting to say something, but knowing that it wasn't I'm not the person to say that,
Yeah.
or and or just like knowing that I can bridge that communication gap between the two it's a unique ability. And I hope that doesn't come out as boastful at all, but it is
No.
definitely something that not a lot of teams have. And so when you can recognize, preferably as an, because I can guarantee you there's probably someone lower on the totem pole that's listening to this and they're going, yes, that's what we need, but I'm not the person that can hire her. If you can be humble enough to, if you're a great leader and you can humble yourself enough to say, we need a meeting facilitator, you are already leaps and bounds benefiting your team.
And I think a lot of people, you just don't know what you don't know. We say that a lot on here. I feel like I do a lot. Well, I'm just
That's my
learning.
whole life.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But it's true. Like, yeah, you think that you're operating, and then you get somebody in there that pushes you and pushes
Yeah.
everybody. And not only that, but get some things that have been under the surface that probably haven't been said because of power dynamics or the different, a lot of the stuff, majority of stuff we do is family. So there's a ton of hierarchy, like stuff that you're going around. There's power dynamics. There's a lot of things that you're tiptoeing through these meetings, but it's also like, hey, we're running a pretty big facility too. Like we got to
Right.
ignore some of those or address those. And a lot of those just get pushed to the side because, the bigger picture is always the business, and being that third party, it's like,
Yep.
hey, aligned goals, aligned vision, it all helps one another. Like us ignoring the little problems stacks up against, the bigger
Oh,
problems.
yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And that's what you would bring me in for, is just to ask those hard questions.
For sure, for sure. Which is fun to watch some of those begin to have too. Some are unbelievably awkward, as we've both been a part of a lot of those conversations too.
There are
But
times you leave the meeting, you're like, I need to talk to no one for 2 days.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so the communication part is always just a huge one with the teams, and as we get out more and more, I just see you really being able to help in that role. Have you always you fit the Bridgefold mold perfectly, as in like wanted to do your own thing, have done your own thing, love the research part of it, love the communication part of it, like also want to do stuff. You and your husband do a ton on the side together too. Like you're an entrepreneur, you take risk. So it's not like you just talk about these things. Like it's truly just who you are. And that's why I think you fit in so good with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk fear, and holding people back and getting uncomfortable, I can talk all day long about that. And the missed opportunities, because trust me, it hasn't always been good. And I've missed a ton of opportunities. But to speak life into that and to encourage someone to step into it and walk alongside them as they do. Like there are things that we've done that are super crazy, that someone's walked alongside us, and to be able to help someone else do that in their big crazy, how does Bob Goff say, their big hairy audacious goals and dreams, to help someone do that, man, that's exciting. And so a lot of times the facilitation can definitely lead into some one-on-one coaching or even team coaching, when it comes to that type of thing. I may have an exec that says, hey, listen, I just need to work one-on-one and I need to be better. Okay, let's, and I have, multiple clients that I do that with. And I love that. That's really building those deep relationships where we really get to have the honest, transparent, hard conversations. And I'm a safe place. I'm not a family member that they have to worry about that's going to show up and have too many beverages at the family reunion picnic and share all their secrets. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to share those things. And that's what's so great about bringing on those, that third party coach that can really help those people who feel like they have nowhere else to go, because one, it's family. It may be a small town. It may be a small community, whatever that is. I'm just letting them have that safe space.
Yeah, and to just be able to kind of, get some of that off their chest. But also,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of it too is that they don't do a ton of that, especially in the family businesses. So half of the time, and I love seeing you, is that you're just prodding the questions because you know that they know the answer. And so I love
Yeah,
seeing you work those angles, like
I like asking questions.
angles. Yeah,
I feel like I should have been like a CSI investigator. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I'll just keep asking.
I bet
And
your
like you said,
husband's.
most of the time,
I bet your
my
husband's
husband, what?
thrilled with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot of,
Yeah.
let me answer this one for you.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, so the meeting facilitation
Mhm.
has really grown into this kind of coaching role and executive role.
Sure.
Um, did how's that journey? I know we talked about it. We've been talking about it a little bit more. Just kind of how that journey has been.
I'll share an example with you of one particular client, that I'm working with, and he is individually just getting started out, but there's a pretty good chance he needs a team member, and it could be his wife. He doesn't know that. We don't know if that's a good option. So what we did was we met, for a few hours, and we did strength finders. And what we did with each of them is we just identified where their strengths are and where they just, I mean, like you said, their zone of genius, where they just really, work the best. And come to find out, it wasn't any surprise. They're very opposite. They're in two very different columns, right? Where he's a visionary, he's a learner, he's a researcher. She is an executor. Like, she's getting stuff done. She's moving and grooving. She's organized. She's all of those things. And for those two to see that and to realize they actually do make a really great team, not just in their family, but also in business. They could really be good if he'll just communicate with her And so then what was really cool is after that, this is where it got it really exciting, is then we went into their 10-year vision. Then we did their 3-year vision. Then we did their 1-year vision. And then we made an action plan. And that is like, you want to talk about just having energy around that and just being so excited to see them, and just to see them, not one as business partners, but then as husband and wife, go, oh my God, we like, for them to identify, where do we want to be in 10 years? And they weren't, every point wasn't on the same page, but to get them on the same page before we left. And then, okay, if we're going to be here in 10 years, where are we going to be at 3 years? And then what do we got to do this year to get us there? And that is like, if business partners, if companies, if marriages would do those things, I would be out of work.
Oh yeah. So I was a financial advisor before Bridgeforth and everything.
Right.
And it was the same thing. Like, that's doing the due diligence to be able to invest, like the background work. I'm like, okay, what are your 1-year goals? What are your 3-year, 5-year, 10-year? And just like seeing a couple sit there and like look at each other, and I'm like, oh no, like,
Yeah,
like
you're so
like
far apart.
they're like, we're just as it comes. What do you mean? Today, tomorrow? That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of business owners are like that too. They're just like, they're operating and doing the best they can, but they don't realize, like, hey, a little bit of time carved away and putting like facilitators, good people in place, and being able to train up will take so much stress and time off of your plate to be able to go execute other things and push even harder. It's just hard to see that when you're in the thick of things and you're just operating as things come across. So yeah, I'm really glad that you shared that example of, because it's good to hear the actual examples, because they're relatable. And then people can kind of put them into their situation a little bit better.
Yeah. And then what we've done since then is we're working through that list. So I still work with them monthly. And then we just are working through catching those goals. I'm introducing him to my network, the resources that I have and stuff like that. So it's not just like a one and done relationship. That's not what I want to like walk alongside my clients for a really long time, and just like, because really, especially as entrepreneurs, as business owners, you're never done. You should never think that you're ever done. There's always, you want to continue to grow, and so there's always work to be done.
For sure. And there's always space to grow too. I think that's what's the best part in that too.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for this transition, and for you as you step over into this and Bridgeforth, or like to be able to offer this services through the team. How do you feel about it? I know it's got to be nervous and excited and everything, all of that, but people want the honesty, the real. I know it's exciting and nervous, but I'm excited for you. I know that you're going to crush this role. I'm excited to get this stuff out and to promote you more as well.
Thank you. I honestly, there are these moments in life when you you're meant for greater things, but you think that's just in your head. But then when you hear someone else speak that to you, and I have been blessed with some really amazing people in my life, even before Jay, Milk Money, Bridgeforth, those types of things. But a few great people who have been like, no, you like, there's like, you are meant for bigger things. And that doesn't, please don't take that as downplaying anything that anyone does at any level, because everyone is important in every organization. It's all a team. And so, but to step into this role, to be a part of the collaborative and productive culture in a business, and to have somebody like Jay or some of my other clients look at me and say, hey, you can write your own future right here. What do you want to do? And be like, are you sure I can be good at this? And then there was this moment of imposter syndrome. And one of Jay's clients who I had, so that's what's great is working with Jay, there's so many clients of his that I already have these wonderful relationships with. And I remember this one particular client, and he just like shoots from the hip. He's so good. And he was just like, you got to quit. Like, we all have imposter syndrome. Get over it. You're done. You're capable. You are meant for this. And I have really had to hold on to that. And that was like back in, I think, December or January, and really had to just go back to that moment on the phone with him and go, no, I am. Or to be like, I know God created me for greater things, and to be a blessing in other people's lives. And if it's through being a facilitator or being an executive coach, man, I mean, what greater opportunity is to sit at the table with someone and to speak life into them. So I am excited. I don't want to screw it up, but I also know that if God's with me, I can't. So he'll fix it if it comes out of my mouth wrong.
And yeah, for sure. And you're just a doer. And I think that's where the imposter syndrome and all of that comes from, is just you always wanting to be the best you that you absolutely can.
Yeah.
And that's what makes you so great at that. You come prepared. You're already ready. You're facilitating. You're doing it. And so I don't worry, as someone that struggles with that themselves, it's like a blessing and a curse. A little bit about what makes you great though, too, that you're
Yeah.
always pushing and you're making sure you do belong in that room.
Well, and especially in this virtual world that we live in, whether that's social virtual, whether that's these types of recordings, we don't get to see. I can show up, I can have my hair done. You wouldn't realize that I got my slippers on right now.
Yeah.
Like we can be anybody on screen. And so I think when you get in those rooms and have those one-on-one in-person conversations, and I do go to my clients, it's not going to be all virtual. I am very adamant that we meet in person because that's how we build trust, relationships, and even just like casual conversation. That's where all that's built. And so, but to see that, I know you see a Gena that shows up prepared for her meeting, but let's be honest, we're all scrambling right before we turn the camera on to make sure, okay, do I have all my notes in the place? Do I have everything?
Yeah.
And that's normal. Like that is
Yeah.
total normal life. And to help someone realize, listen, you're not failing. Like this is okay. But when you know what, when you did show up for that 9 o'clock meeting and you showed up at 5 till, you set a precedence to let people know that you were there. When you showed up at 9:15, we got to talk about that because you're not on time. And what you're doing, especially as an executive, you're setting a culture for your entire team that it's okay to be late on meetings. And I'm the person that's going to come in and go, I used to work for someone like that, and it is unacceptable. And guess what? Everyone in the company shows up 15 minutes late for meetings. We're not getting anything done. So
Sure.
like, I don't know. I just
And we
totally
did. We
took
got a
that
little bit
somewhere
of hard
else.
nosed Gena in there too.
But
I'm good.
yeah, but that's
Yeah.
just again, it's not all the stuff that I know what works. I also know what doesn't work, and I have seen some really toxic companies that it starts at the top. And when you see, I mean, presidents of companies or, your CEOs setting a culture, setting this, it's okay to be late. It's okay to work, at 10 o'clock at night, or all of these things that don't fit your core values that you supposedly have written on the wall in the break room.
Uh-huh.
Like someone has to come in and have those conversations because your employees are getting frustrated, or your really good employees are going to leave your business because you're letting everyone else lead like you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, for
So there,
sure.
I
No,
just went off.
no, I love it. People need to know. I think that's what people are going to see, like that side of you,
Yeah,
and that's what you bring to this,
yeah,
and
yeah.
bring to the meetings, and are able to push people through that, because those are the real conversations that need to be had. So yeah, I'm super excited for this, and excited to be able to showcase you to everybody as well. So yes, best of luck, and
I'm so ready. I'm so
yeah,
ready.
I know you are.